everybody, it's Marilyn Wilson here, president of Artie Technology, and I'm super excited for our Tech Titans event this day. We're going to be meeting with Curtis Cicalo, and he is the founder, I think, founder and CEO of Voiceflip and Artie, right?
That is
Um,
correct.
he's doing some really cool stuff. I was saying before we started that there's so many people saying, "Oh, I'm an AI expert." It's just like when social media came out. Do you remember how many social media gurus there were? I hated that word. I still hate that word. But what I love about Curtis is he is the real deal. And we've talked to many of his clients about this. Kinds of stuff he's doing is legitimately making life better, not only for the associations and MLSs he supports, but for the customers that they support. So it's always great to talk to someone like that. So with that, I'd love you to just kind of take us back even before Artie and all of that stuff. Where did Curtis come from, and how did he somehow get into this world of AI and automation?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, it's the first time I've ever been told I was a titan of anything. And now I feel like tech taught or something would have made a little more sense in my case, but sure, we'll go with titan. So where did I start? So it's a very good question. Um, I guess when I first got started in the whole, we'll go real estate, that space, I was doing work for the Canadian Real Estate Association,
Mm,
CREA. I was doing work in their data analytics department. I helped them build what they call their data boutique, which is what they sell their data to like banks and other organizations. So I spent about 15 years doing that as a consultant. But at the same time, I had a real passion for trying to teach people, I guess. So one of my degrees was interactive multimedia design. From that, I wanted to build games. So I had this idea of like if I could build games to teach people how to learn, I
mm,
guess it would make the world a better place. So always had a passion for, making data accessible to everyone because I feel like if people have access to data and they'll go and learn and, makes the world a better place. Which I guess how I got started in Korea and everything else too. Um, but yeah, I spent about 15 years in Korea. I had this idea. I was trying to build these websites that would, create games for people so they can help them learn. That failed miserably. It's like probably my first failed startup was that one. There was no money for education games back in the day because selling to schools and stuff is notoriously hard. So that failed. I left my job at Korea after about 15 years as a consultant, sold that business, and then my wife and I traveled the world building a fair trade store. So we found handmade
mm.
goods around the world. I know it's going to tie back into VoiceWhip eventually.
Okay,
Um,
we're
Traveled
coming
the
with you.
world, found handmade goods and sold them on our store and also online. And from there, I found that, most of the people in third world countries, couldn't type, couldn't text, and that type of thing, but everyone could speak, right? Um, and then in 2018, I was at a conference in Portugal, Web Summit, and all the big companies like Alexa, Google, or sorry, Amazon, Google, Apple were debuting their assistants, Siri and all that fun stuff. And I told myself, man, this is the future. People in these third world countries or people who have like poor education can still speak. This is how they're going to get access to data, and this is going to make them better people. Let them learn. So I decided to leave my job that I was currently doing at that time, which was with the FBI. Left that job and decided to pour my entire life savings into building this technology, where basically people could talk to an assistant and get any data they want on the internet um, delivered to them, in their own languages. That was a very grand idea. Grand ideas don't make money, so that did not work out very well. But I learned a lot of lessons from that. So in 2019, I approached Korea and rentals.ca here in Canada, and I said, "Hey, look, you know, housing's a human need, like one of the basic human needs. Can we make housing more discoverable by making it available on all these assistants?" So rentals.ca said, "Yeah, let's try it out." So we built an Alexa skill for them. It uh, it worked pretty well. We had 32,000 hits a month roughly on their Alexa skill, which made it the number one Alexa skill in Canada. Um, but they had like 3 million hits a month on their website, so it wasn't really moving the needle for them at all.
Hmm.
But their CEO at the time said, "Hey, like the technology is really cool. Why don't you just take it and put it on the web?" Um, so we ended up doing that, building natural language search for them. Um, and we invented our own small language model at the time, back in 2019 to do this because once we found out people, or once people were asking questions and they could speak to it, they were just asking all types of nonsense. Hey, I'm looking
Hmm.
for an apartment, in Toronto, 20 minutes from a Shoppers Drug Mart. I need to be 5 minutes from my kid's daycare. I wanted to be within, 500 meters of a Starbucks, whatever it was. And that data what really wasn't available. So we ended up building a small language model where we fed a bunch of different data sets to it to make that kind of discoverable. And that's kind of really when I fell in with AI because, I'm like,
Okay.
wow, these language models are amazing. In our case, it was a small language model. And yeah, that's how I fell in with AI. And then we luckily got introduced to OpenAI really early on. I think in 2020 or late 2019. We were my co-founder at the time and I met Sam Altman, and he gave us access to GPT-2 at the time. And then I realized what we were building compared to what they were building, a little bit of a difference. So we got to play around with that for about a year before anyone else did, which was super fun. And that got me hooked. I was in, AI the whole way.
Gotcha. So you've been at it since the early days before most people were talking about OpenAI.
I was a crazy person at conferences in 2019 talking about, hey, I have a small language model that can do natural language searches. And everyone's like, get out of here, nerd. I'm like, we don't care about
We don't
that.
even know what that means.
Yeah, get out of here. So,
All right, so let's flash forward to how did that ultimate I can see where it's taking you, but how did you ultimately land on the concept of Artie and what you're doing today? Like
yeah.
from there to here, how'd you get there?
Yeah, so we had built this product that was basically a natural language search, voice search in I think 25 languages at the time for portals and MLSs, that type of thing, and brokers. But we were trying to sell that at a time where no one was buying that type of technology, um, because it just wasn't making any sense. We spent like 2 years trying to sell this technology. I had a couple clients, we're making okay money, but not like anything that would move the needle, and it really wasn't scalable. Um, so in 2023, we've had to figure like, oh, we had to pivot, I think. We're at that point. We were either going to close a business or pivot. So we decided to pivot. We talked to our clients who said, hey, what are some pain points you have? And pretty much across the board, it was support. You know,
Hmm.
we want to give our members as association MLS, we want to give them 24-hour support. We want to be able to help them anytime they need it. But we obviously can't do that because it's too expensive. And I was like, man, our technology can easily do that if we just feed it that specific data set as opposed to MLS or listing data.
Hmm.
So we ended up working with the Rochester Association of Realtors. It was actually Brandon from their innovation officer from Rochester, who I met at I think an NAR conference in Miami like a year previous. Um, yeah, and he's like, you know what? Let's be the guinea pig. Let's do it. Let's build it. So their CEO Jim approved it, and we built it out. It took us about 3 months to build that out. Yeah, and it's been great. It's been a transformative product, I want to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many life lessons in what you just of that whole story of you kind of like Walt Disney. You pushed on, you pushed, you pushed, you pushed. This one didn't work, this one didn't work, but you never gave up, and then eventually, I think you found something now that's going to work, and it is
God, I
working,
hope so.
right? Which is exciting. So if for any
Yeah.
of you that are have that idea in your head, you've always wanted to build it, like sometimes you just got to jump in and start swimming and or flying in your case with little Artie over there, Artie the
Yeah,
owl.
it's funny because I was working, I mentioned I was working for the FBI in 2018. And I was doing like really depressing work. It was crime data analysis, which is pretty depressing. We were going to have our first kid, in December of that year. So in October, I was telling my wife, like, I can't do this anymore with a kid coming to the world. I need to do something better.
Hmm.
So I'm like, I'm getting rid of all my income. I'm just going to jump full on into the startup and hopefully it works. And luckily, she was super supportive of it.
Hmm.
But I think sometimes that's what you have to do. You just got to say, you know what, cut all like, burn the bridge. I can't go back to what I'm doing. I got to move on. And yeah, hopefully it works out for you.
Yeah, burn the boats, they call it, right? Jump in and go for the
Yep.
best. So, for those that don't know what an RD is, kind of just give people an overview. What is it doing, and what kind of problems is it solving today?
Yeah. So Artie's essentially an AI agent, an AI assistant for associations, MLSs, but also brokers and prop tech companies. But what it does, it answers support questions. So, staff or association MLSs, they want to be able to support their members 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but it's super expensive to do that. So essentially what we do is we take their entire data set, we train a small language model on it, And then we make it available through 8 different communication channels so that no matter where their members are, they can ask questions and get answers immediately. So on average, our interaction with Artie lasts about 30 seconds. I think it's like 28 point some odd seconds. But that same interaction, if you're going to call a human and, like, how do I reset my password? How do I add a listing? Whatever that is, you're like between 7 and 10 minutes for that interaction.
Mm.
Real estate agents don't have time for that. It takes a lot of time from staff. And then plus, most offices are closed when real estate actually happens. So Artie essentially allows agents to work whenever they want, which is what they do, and still get answers to their questions.
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
a great stat I think I remember from Rochester, which was the first customer, that I think they said 75% of their calls were during the day and 25 were at night when they had a staffed, only had support during the day.
Yeah.
And once Artie went into place, it completely flipped. Now it's like 25 during the day and 75% at night, because you're right, realtors are not 9 to 5ers, never have been. And
No.
a lot of times the paperwork they might need to do or the questions they might have, they're gonna be with clients during the day. They're gonna do that stuff after hours. So is that what you're seeing? Is it really flipping that so that's truly 24/7 coverage now?
Yeah, 100%. So I think it ends up the same way that it worked with Rochester, where initially when they launched 75/25,
Mm-hmm.
and it generally flips after, we'll say, 4 or 5 months with all our clients, just when people find out they can use it whenever they need to. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think in a lot of cases, a lot of people use it in a panic mode. They're like at a listing or whatever, and they're trying to figure something out. And they text it and they get an answer back. And they're like, wow, this is fantastic. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to keep using this. Why would I call during the day? Another weird upside of it is you end up hearing from members that you never heard from before or you haven't heard from in years. I think because people a lot of people are embarrassed to ask humans the questions. I'm that guy. Like I don't want to call anyone ever if I can help it. But I will text an AI agent for sure because they're not going to judge me. They're not going to laugh at me. And it just I don't want to interact with someone. So,
So just give us some scope of the kinds of questions that people are able to ask through this thing, and how does an association or MLS give you the answer so that that it's in there, so when someone has a question they get it?
hmm.
How do you know what are they asking, and then how do you get the data in there to make sure that the answers are correct and that there is an answer to be given?
Okay. Yeah. So we're only limited by the data we get. So people can ask anything, and people do ask anything. Um, you know, it varies from very simple things like, hey, how do I add a listing? What's the next CE course coming up? We've had people say, oh my God, I added a listing for $6 billion when it was only supposed to be $600,000. I really need to change that right away. Like, how the hell
Mhm.
do I do that?
Yep.
Um, you get those fun ones, but then you get the ones, where people are struggling with something. Um, they're out with a showing. They don't really know much about the property. Hey man, is this house available for like an Airbnb? Can I actually Airbnb this house?
Mm-hmm.
Or is my client gonna be pissed off if I sell them my house and they can't Airbnb it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, people want to know zoning questions. Can I keep a horse on this 4 acre property, or can I not keep a horse on this 4 acre property?
Gotcha.
And there's other things like we can add MLS data into it too now. So we have people asking specific questions about the actual home, like what are the property taxes, when was it built, what's the heating source, what's the septic, if it's on septic or water, and then we can add other layers of data on top. So is it in a flood zone? How noisy is it? What's the
Gotcha.
crime rate in the area? A whole bunch of things. Things that if agents are at a showing, that their clients are going to ask them, and they can quickly ask Artie and get a response back now. So they're not flipping through PDFs or whatever other um, data sources they have. It's just all at their fingertips right away. And
So
the way
does
they
that?
upload it is very simple. They just have to
Okay.
either give us API access to certain things
Mhm.
or drag and drop files to us.
Okay.
That's how we get data.
So you have like an upload kind of a thing, like you would like
We
when you're
do, yeah.
uploading into Google Docs or something like that?
Yeah,
Some.
it's exactly like Google Docs. It's our own version of it, but yeah. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So it's pretty simple.
If you can drag and drop a file, you can update your AI assistant, um, which hopefully everyone can drag and drop a
Yeah.
file at least. Yeah.
That's yeah. I think again that the word AI I think is exciting and scary all at the same time. And as people somehow think it's like out of reach, that it's so far off field of what they know how to do that they maybe can't get there. It sounds like you're kind of helping them bridge the gap between the easier stuff and the what seems kind of obscure and hard to understand.
Yeah, I think the issue with AI is you hear a lot of it's all hype. Like a lot of it is hype, right?
Yeah.
You hear like, hey, if you implement this AI, you're going to 10x your business, and then you can just, I don't know, sell homes while you sleep or whatever it is, right? That's
Yeah.
obviously not realistic. That's not how things work. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think Artie's a practical use of AI that people can understand immediately,
Hmm.
and people don't mind interacting with, which is, I think, super important.
So what benefits would you say the associations and MLSs are getting out of it so far? I know it's relatively new, but how did they feeling about it?
Well, so far, all our clients love us, which is nice, and love bragging about us. But I think the benefits they get, well, again, 24-hour support is easy.
Hmm.
Um, Reducing the amount of time on their staff members, super easy. They can go and actually do higher value projects or just go find
Hmm.
your data, add to Artie to make Artie more valuable.
Yep.
They hear from members they haven't heard from before, which is also cool. But I think one of the coolest benefits they get is they actually they get to figure out what their members actually want to know. So we give everyone a
Hmm.
report every day of what their members asked the previous day, what we answered, but then where our knowledge gaps are.
Hmm.
And those knowledge gaps, it's usually about 15% of the questions we get per day. We don't have the answer to. But it lets the association or MLS go and see what the members are actually asking and finding that knowledge gap and filling it in. And that way they can be the single source of truth for all the
Hmm.
members. And I think that is what most of them are looking for. They want to be the go-to spot
Hmm.
but their members have a question and it proves their value, right? It gives them like immediate value that way. Um, and then they can go tell their members, hey, look, I heard you were asking about this. We didn't have it, but now thank you for asking. We've added this in. So thank you for helping us build our knowledge base. And it gives
Hmm.
the members a little bit of ownership of the product too, which is super neat.
That's awesome. So, we're getting these questions as Wave Group. I'm sure you're getting them too. There's associations and MLSs do so many things, right? They do education, they do training, they do support, they do compliance, they do obviously technology and technology training and a whole bunch of stuff. Do you have any advice for groups that aren't with you yet? I'm not saying that you're the only answer because I don't think you are the only answer. I think you're one of the great answers, but not the only one. How do they sit down and think through where they should think about where AI can help them? Like, how do they even like? Some people it's just like, oh my God, there's so much stuff I don't know where to start, so I'm just not going to do anything. How do you get them to like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you look at all
I
these
do.
different functions that associations and MLSs do,
Yeah.
many of which probably have, let's not even call it AI, automation capabilities of some sort. Any advice on how they should like sift through all that and figure out which one they should start with first, second, third?
Yeah, so the best way to get started is to actually get started. I guess it's advice we do here at Voice of all the time too. As part of our company culture, play with something, either fail up with it or whatever, and learn from it. So play, fail, learn. It's super important. I think most startups kind of have the same idea,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that obviously MLS and associations are startups, but you can learn a lot from how startups grow and how nimble we are. Um, and that's important, failing is super important because you learn from it. So don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to play around with tools. But also, what I always tell people, find something that you dread doing in your day-to-day activities, whatever it is, whatever task it is. And when you look at it, you're like, oh man, I really don't want to do that. Like it just fills you with existential dread to go, I don't know, update your accounts receivable, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Find that task and see if you can automate it with AI. Just Google, hey, how do I automate this with AI? It's a very simple step, but it's very practical, and
Mm-hmm.
that'll make just make your life easier, make you a little happier, and that's the best way to start with AI.
So just
Dip your
start
toes in the
small.
water.
Like, yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of very high, caliber, huge failures of people they like try to boil the ocean. Like you say, oh, if you do this, you can sleep all day and drive a Mercedes. Like it's all that stuff, that overpromise stuff. This is not that. This is day to day support. Like you say, accounting, whatever, spreadsheets, whatever it might be. That's a really interesting thought. And another question we get a lot is, should I build it or should I rent it? Like, should I work with someone like with Artie, or should I take it on and do it myself? Like, how again? What's the decision tree there? How do you decide which makes sense? Because there might be some you do build, some you rent. I don't know.
So that is something we struggle with daily. We're a technology shop, but our technology that we're good at is AI. We are good
Hmm.
at AI. We build small language models. We don't do the whole ChatGPT thing.
Hmm.
So what we do is generally if we have to do something like with a front end interface or something we're not familiar with, we buy. We go find another contractor maybe to build it for us, whatever it is, or we buy a product that's pre-built because then someone else maintains that code base.
Mm-hmm.
Building software is relatively easy.
Mm-hmm.
Maintaining software is a huge pain.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't want to maintain, I don't know, 30 different code bases. We want to be focused, like hyper focused on what we're good at, which is AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would say everyone else, take that same approach, I think. Chances are if you're an MLS and association, you're probably not fantastic at building software. You probably don't have the tech team to do it. You can go higher, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But it's better to leave it to professionals. I will put a caveat in though, if you are one of those ones who builds tech, or if you do have some very specific um, workflows that maybe you built back in the day in your own technology, you can probably go ahead and build like, small connectors using AI to put those together and help your workflow. But other than that, I would say buy. I mean, maybe a little self-serving because I'm a vendor, buy
Right.
my product. But I mean, we do the same thing here. We know if so maybe self-serving, but that's how we do it here too. So
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that probably makes sense. Most people, you're right, don't have deep development resources. Would you say it's easier with the AI to AI to AI to connect the dots like than it used to be with trying to integrate software piece and software piece and software piece that were built on three different platforms and things like that? Does the integration happen more easily today than it did with sort of the legacy systems that many MLSs are dealing with?
yeah, yes and no. So modern
Okay.
systems, yes, they integrate really well together. If you're trying to connect AI to like a super old system, there's
Mm-hmm.
still going to be some issues. A lot of data cleanup and that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're building new systems from scratch, the integration is much easier now. There's a whole bunch of automation platforms that'll connect apps and everything together. Um, they're like a dime a dozen nowadays, like Zapier clones.
Mm. Good. Okay. I mean, I think that's good because that slowed a lot of people down in the past. It's like I want to create a seamless workflow, but there is no way I can get this to talk to this to talk to this, and they just give up. Brokers especially. Brokers
Yeah.
have 15 tools and none of them talk to one another. They get very frustrated by that. We've done lots of research to show that. So that's neat to know and encouraging as we move forward. So I'm going to kind of take you to a bigger place for a second. And you take this wherever you want to take it. But of course, real estate, like every industry, is looking at where will AI help the industry? Where could it potentially hurt the industry? Where could it potentially wipe out the industry, right? What's your vision of that? Like, how do you see the role of AI, ideally making associations and MLSs stronger over time, but what are the kind of the pitfalls or things to look out for?
Yeah, so AI should make associations and MLSs and like brokers and everything stronger. I think the pitfalls is, especially for an MLS, their value is their data. Um,
Hmm.
I think giving away their data too cheaply to some of
Hmm.
these larger companies is obviously a huge error, and
Hmm.
maybe people should, I don't know, look at where their data feeds are going and rein those back a little bit. Um, Personal opinion.
Hmm.
Um, what I'd also be worried though is the larger guys coming into the real estate space. I know there's probably some rules and regulations around it. But if you look at companies like Amazon and that type of thing, real estate's really the only space they're not in yet.
Hmm.
Um, and they have to be looking, I would say. If I
Yep.
was them, vertically integrate buying a home with purchasing all my items on Amazon and financing it through Amazon Pay. Ooh, um, I could see it happening.
Yeah, I mean, they bought
Um,
Whole Foods for that reason, right? They're trying to
but
integrate their e-commerce of food and goods with on the ground. And
yep,
they've integrated that with, Amazon returns and all kinds of stuff that having that retail presence has changed what they can deliver. So you're
yep,
not wrong. Um,
yeah.
it could be interesting. What would you say? What would it look like? Let's just go down that road because it's a fascinating.
Okay.
What would it look like in your mind if Amazon entered real estate? And how would it change the industry?
Ooh, do you want my opinion on how they're going to enter real estate? Um, I
Whatever you
I
want to,
think
whatever you want to share. Go ahead.
okay. I think they would buy a very large brokerage that
Okay.
has a national presence,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then they would basically say, "Look, I have all this data. Screw you. I'm not going to belong to the MLS. I'm going to do it Amazon's way. Amazon MLS. Um, that would be
Whoa,
my opinion,
Amazon MLS.
right?
It's a great
Quick,
name.
someone register that quick.
Yeah, right. Go get that.
Yeah, I think that's how it would work. I think they would work with the MLSs and the associations for a little bit, and eventually they just say like they'd strong arm themselves out. Um, you know, they basically have unlimited pockets to do what they want. Yeah,
Interesting.
I could see it happening. I don't think it'll happen soon.
Hmm.
Um, but I can see it happening. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, we're gonna put a date stamp on this one. We'll see, Curtis, if you were right about that. It's very interesting. I could definitely see it happening too. It's one to think more about, I think. Um, so does it change? We've got, again, most MLSs have, I think, on our and the customer experience index surveys we do across the country, I think the average is like 10 or 11 tools that most have these days. Many and brokers suffer from this too. Many complain that there's not enough usage on those tools, right? They buy this stuff and it sits there, and some group uses them, but not nearly enough.
Mhm.
If you ask agents, sometimes they don't even know what half the stuff is, never mind how to leverage it. But what they do know how to do is ask questions, to your point, right?
Yeah.
They do know how to ask a question that might require some MLS data, some climate data, some public records information, like potentially stuff we've got as MLSs, but they're all over the place, right? They're in 5 or 6 different fields. Do you see that where it's going to go, where it'll be sort of, I can do like you're doing with Artie, right? Could there be Q&A about all kinds of things that are tapping into all the data that MLSs have down the road?
Yeah, for sure. I think the only thing stopping like even Artie from doing that is just access to the data.
Hmm.
The more you feed into an AI system like ours, the more questions you can answer. It's uh, it's a very simple calculation, right? You get
Hmm.
a ton of data, you get a ton of answers. And I think we're going there. I think a lot of our clients are adding, like, just keep adding more and more and more data, and they'll eventually get to the point where, you know, agents can pretty much ask anything. We're crawling or we're getting information from municipalities, counties, cities, all that fun stuff, state
Hmm.
level stuff.
Hmm.
We're getting information from NAR. Again, we're adding FEMA data, crime data, all this stuff. Yeah, we're only limited by what people feed us. So I think, yeah, well, at some point, agents will be able to get all the answers they want, wherever they want, and wherever they are, I think, because that's the important thing, right? Because again, agents are always out and doing something. Um, and even sometimes opening an app to get that information um, isn't necessarily easy to do, right? With text messaging, especially, you need very little cell phone reception. If you're out in the sticks somewhere, you need one little bar. You can send a text message, get a message back, and get the answer you need. Meanwhile, you don't need like a data connection or anything. So, yeah. Um,
So will we need applications down the road, or will we just need the information?
I think
We
eventually
just have
only
a
the
big
information.
bucket of data like ChatGPT, and you get everything you want in one place. Do you think we'll get there with MLSs?
Yeah, I think so. 100%. It may not be soonish. It may be, and soon in the startup space is like a year.
Yeah.
It could be,
Yeah.
it could be the next 5 years, but I
Mhm.
think some are already starting to move that direction.
Yeah.
They're becoming like API first MLSs almost, and I
Hmm.
think that is a smart way to go. Make your data available through API, like all your data sets. Obviously, control who has access, and then you can build tools like ours that just use that and help agents.
So another thing MLSs worry about is security. How do we know? But and let me ask a tactical question. How does an MLS, what do they ask an AI company that comes to them and says they're going to offer them something to know that that is secure? They kind of know how to ask it in a software perspective, but what do you ask it in a AI perspective? Is it different?
Yeah, I would say so. So one, I mean, I don't like feeding my data to the large players in the industry again. If you're an AI company and you're like a ChatGPT wrapper company,
Hmm.
chances are you don't have GPT Enterprise or anything like that. So any data you feed to OpenAI becomes part of their knowledge base at some
Yeah.
point,
Yes.
which seems like a terrible, terrible move if you're feeding your client's data to OpenAI. Um,
Hmm.
but also to if they're doing that, make sure they have an enterprise license. Sure. If they don't, if they're not using OpenAI or whatever, make sure that the models they're hosting are siloed. Their data doesn't talk to anyone else's data. Everything's encrypted back and forth. Um, So the way we do it, every single one of our clients has a different instance on our Azure servers,
Gotcha.
our Azure cloud. So data cannot talk back and forth between clients. It's just everything siloed off. It's like air gapped more or less.
Hmm.
You know, and then we routinely do pen testing, which is penetration testing. I come from an e-commerce background. I mentioned my wife and I had a store and I did e-commerce software development for a while there.
Hmm.
Um, and that is, when you're dealing with money, penetration testing is a mandatory thing.
Right.
Um, so it just, when we started building Voiceflip, I was like, yeah, we got to do some pen testing. I later found out I was at a CMLS conference one year and I asked all the CTOs in the room, like, who does pen testing? Who checks their vendors for penetration testing? And no one even had a clue what it was, which was
Wow.
interesting.
Wow.
But we still do it. So
Good.
penetration test, super important. You should probably ask your vendors about it. I'd recommend. That being said, as a vendor talking to other vendors, a lot of us in the industry have really good security. And it's, even though people don't ask about it, it's there still. It's in the background. No one wants to get hacked because it's bad for business. So people still do have really good security.
So just, I'm going to put that back, play it back in English for those that are like me.
Sorry.
So a custom instance, for those that don't know what that means, it's basically, I'm going to use buckets because I can get what a bucket looks like, right? So Rochester's got a bucket, Chicago's got a bucket, Indianapolis has their own bucket, and they don't talk back and forth. There's no way for any information, like a question someone in Indiana asked is never going to show up inside of the bucket that Rochester is using. They're all separate. So
Correct. Yeah.
there's no cross fertilization of any sort. That's the simple way, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's really that's good to know. And then a second question about that is, so let's say that I've decided to rent, which I agree with you. I think at this point, Artie's a great example. It's like you can get in. I mean, what I hear, people can get up and running in this thing in weeks, right? Like 3, 4, 5 weeks if you're
Mhm.
active. It doesn't
Yep.
take long
4
at
weeks
all.
generally. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a big lift to get this thing going. But what if down the road, I don't know, for whatever reason, they decide, okay, I'm not going to work with Artie anymore. I'm going to go work with myself, or I'm going to flip to another company, right? People flip vendors and things like that. Um, what happens with all that learning that was done in their bucket? Can you export the brain power of all those questions that were asked and all those answers that were asked and put it somewhere else if you so choose?
Unfortunately not. So they'll still have
Okay.
all the raw reports that we gave
Okay.
them.
Okay.
So whatever that is. So they'll have all the questions and all the answers, all that fun stuff. But the
Okay.
actual model is
Hmm.
our proprietary information, right?
Got
It's
it.
our IP.
Hmm.
So if a client ever does leave, it hasn't happened yet. If a client does leave, we just delete their data. Their data is not good to us afterwards
Okay.
because we're not doing anything as besides serving their members.
Yeah.
So we just delete their data. They still have all the PDFs, but the actual knowledge base itself, the model we trained on, is gone. We delete that.
Okay, gotcha. That's interesting to know. All right, good. Well, this has been fascinating, Curtis. It's fun to get inside of the brain of an arty to see how you got here, why you got here. I can tell you guys, I've talked to, it seems like we have a lot of clients in common. I don't know if that's, I guess the innovative company, find both of us, Curtis. I don't know how that
Yep.
is. But everyone that I've spoken with is absolutely thrilled with what they're getting here. And MLSs are tough nuts. Like you guys, you tell me the truth if you don't like something. And I'm hearing
Yeah.
nothing but really great stuff about the level of support, the level of preparation you're helping them with. That daily report, like Shelly Specchio, for those that know her, I'm gonna pick on you for a minute, Shelly. She gets that daily report, and it sounds like it's like the top of their list every day. They're like, "What questions weren't we able to answer? Let's go get it to Kurtis," and then they flip back the next day and test them. And one thing she told me that I thought was really interesting and tells you a lot about the engagement of this is that if somebody asks a question and they can't answer it, then again, she goes and fixes it so that you can answer it. She says she has people come back the next day to see if they can answer it. And now
Yep.
they can. And she said, they're like, oh, thank you. Now you can answer it. Like, you don't get that kind of engagement mostly with stuff that goes on in the MLS. People are like, get me in, get me out. They don't really care. So this tells me something about the level of appreciation that you were able to answer my question at 11:15 at night when normally I never would have been able to get that. Or you realized you couldn't answer it and then fixed it instantly and got it back to me so that I could work it the next day. Like I think that tells a lot. And I can tell from what we see with our customer experience indexes, Service is absolutely what drives satisfaction, 100%, 100%. And I'll give you some really good examples. We all remember the Rapatoni outage, think I ought to get fixed and everything's okay. But some of the MLSs that were involved with that had very little, if any, drop off in customer satisfaction that year. You would imagine that that could have taken a big dive, right? Like, what are you
Hmm.
doing? My system isn't here. But what happened was a lot of those organizations, and they're amazing organizations. I wish I could share all their names, but there's lots of good ones. Did everything in their power. One of them built a little magic Excel spreadsheet, and every time someone sent them a listing, they updated the spreadsheet and sent it out every 15 minutes. Like, it's not elegant, but you had the information. Other
Yeah.
ones were in data shares and they like tapped into their peer MLS. It wasn't involved to get the data. It was amazing how much people stepped up, but it tells me that service is what really matters at the end of the day, right? And so if you think about where you might want to start, whether it's Artie or a different way, is figuring out better ways to deliver service to your customers. Because at the end of the day, that's what they'll appreciate the most. And we're all like that, right? When you sit on the phone and you got to wait there and push 16 buttons until you get someone, and then you get someone, they don't know what you're talking, then we've all had those experiences. You're just like, ugh, I don't like this company, right? So I think there's something to be said here for thinking about process that affects your customer. I just heard a broker this morning actually talking about this on a different call. And she said, for brokerages too, that service is where you're going to win at the end of the day. And you need to look in every single corner of your organization, every single dusty corner, quiet corner, loud corner, freeway, wherever it is. And if you see anything that you believe is creating friction, you have to fix it. And if there's anything that AI seems to be promising, we're early on, right, is that it can help with that friction, right? So
Yeah.
that's what kind of would be my advice. Would you agree with that? That like look around for the stuff that's like you said, the stuff either you hate to do or you think your customers hate to do, and try to figure out a way to fix that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you're right. Customer service is like the most important thing I think an MLS can offer their members. I feel having spoken to a ton of MLS executives and staff and association staff, and then also a ton of agents, I
Hmm.
feel like the MLS staff and association staff, all they want to do is serve their members better. But the members really don't see that. And there's always a lot of like, oh, so and so like isn't helping me. But with a tool like Artie, that kind of friction goes away.
Hmm.
Um, and it makes the members like you a little more. And maybe it's a bad thing to say. Maybe it's the wrong way to phrase that.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. It's not that
Yeah.
complicated. They like you more.
Yeah.
They believe you like them more, which is even more important. And they think that you're
Yeah.
out for their best interest. If you demonstrate that you genuinely care about their success, and if that means you need to get them something at 10:15 at night and you do it,
Hmm.
you figured it out because they hate the 9 to 5 mentality because they don't operate like that. I mean, you get calls, and I do, I'm sure you do too. Emails, text, 10 o'clock at night on a Saturday. I'm like, people, do we have weekends? Like, no, I'm in real estate. I don't have a weekend, so you don't get one either. It's just how it
Yep.
works. So it's pretty neat. But anyway, what else? What else maybe Annie, can you give us a little sneak peek of anything new that we're gonna see? Heard first here on Tech Titans?
Yeah, actually. I am very excited about a new model we're working on. Um, and we haven't really figured out a name for it. I'm calling it predictive support.
Mm-hmm.
So, now that we have whatever 20 odd clients, we can see if we anonymize data and everything. We can analyze their data and see if someone comes in, and they're like a lady between, I don't know, 30 and 40 years old, and they have this initial question, chances are these will be their follow-up questions based on
Oh,
all the other data we've looked at. So if
okay.
they come in and have this first question, you can predict their next like 3 or 4 questions and
Oh,
anticipate
wow.
that, and then
Okay.
send them an email being like, hey, look, you know, you're probably struggling with this. Here's some courses to take. Here's some, references you can go through, whatever it is, or even give them a phone call and walk them through some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, and I'm really excited by that. It's like support to the next level. On the one hand, it's going to reduce the usage of Artie because if they're not asking 4 questions, that's 4 less interactions with Artie. Um, but it's going to help our MLSs and association members, a ton more, just to be able to predict the needs of their members and, proactively reach out. And I'm very, very excited about that.
Yeah, one of your members, the North Shore Barrington Association in outside of Chicago, their mantra is one member at a time, right? So they know that everybody's a little different and everybody might
Mhm.
have their own path. But with that kind of, education, AI education, where they could anticipate what someone needs. So that is so core to one member at a time. So your particular question is this. My guess is that's going to mean you need this and this and this. And whether it's, here's some other things you might, that might related to the question you asked, just so you have them, and or hey, that's something we're hearing a lot of. So that's why we've created this course. So you can drive people into different levels of engagement,
Mhm.
but it's because of something that they've created for that they brought to you. Like then it's like, again, one member at a time. It's a great way to say it. I love that.
Yeah.
Shout out to Jeff Lasky and his team. I think that's a great way of looking at how we do what we do. So
Yeah, for
anyway,
sure.
all
Yep.
right. Well, that sounds great. So any idea when that's coming? Because we want it now that you told us we need it.
Well, I'm hoping sometime next year. It's a big and sadly expensive model to build.
Okay.
So sometime next year. Yeah, we
Okay,
got
good. Well, keep
yeah.
us when you get it going. We'll do this again. You can tell us all about it.
Yeah, we'll make it a WAV Group exclusive when we release it for
All
sure.
right, there we go. I love that. That sounds great. Okay, anything else you'd like to share with the audience about AI or Artie or anything else before we go today?
No, not particularly. I mean, I think the one message, if if you don't use Artie and you want to do something else, just go and find something you do not like to do and see if you can automate it. It's a really easy way to dip your toes into AI. And it'll make your life better. AI is supposed to, I mean, hopefully will make it so that you're only working 4 days a week as opposed to 5 days a week and give you a better quality of life. Take some baby steps to get there.
Or 6.5 instead of 7? That's about more
Yeah,
like
well, I mean, look, yeah, maybe.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Curtis. This was fascinating. Congrats on all your success. It's been really fun to watch, and it's fun to see, again, AI become a lot more than just a theory, but somebody that's actually given practical solutions. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Marilyn. It was fun.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.